Okay, how to write and publish a manuscript is what we're going to talk about. And I'm going to move fairly quickly to make sure we're out on time. I would like to begin with a question. Why should you write? Because a lot of people have a desire to do things, but they can't justify why. And some of you may not be ready to write because you can't answer the first question. Why should you write, and why should anybody even want to read what you write? So it's an important question to begin with. Do you have a real purpose for what you desire to do? So here's some questions and some answers that we can talk about. Why should you write? Because, first of all, the world is ruled by dead men. How can the world be ruled by dead men? Because dead men left their ideas on paper. And that's what writing does. It gives you the power, the ability to leave your thoughts beyond your grave. That's because ideas outlive men. All of you have great ideas. Some of you are still cultivating those ideas, developing those ideas. But those ideas are important. And I think the first thing you might need to get over is the fact that you do have ideas that are worth reading. I think the average person in this room might feel like I did. What do I have to say to the world? Who wants to read what I have to write? And that barrier can stop you from writing. You almost assume that other people are supposed to write, but not you. So you enjoy reading other people's ideas, never thinking that perhaps you may have something that is worth reading. So those issues, we want to settle them in this session. Another point, why should you write? Because your ideas should live beyond your generation. Nothing is as powerful as a book. No matter how much they develop electronic technology, the book will still remain supreme. They now have e-books that you can buy, but they're still books. And somebody got to write that manuscript to download into that e-book. So the writing is always permanent. It'll be here forever. No matter how you use electronic media, someone has to write the content. So the book will live forever. Books are so important that God used one himself. And God preserved his ideas for humanity, not on a CD, not on a tape, not on a DVD. He preserved his ideas in a book. So if God uses books to preserve divine knowledge, how much more should we use the mechanism and the medium of a book to preserve our ideas, to outlive our own generation? When you go to college and you pay money to study, you actually pay money to read books. Haven't you noticed? A college education is simply you not being disciplined enough to read books by yourself. So you pay someone to make you go to the library and read. And that is called a college. The power of ideas. You go to a college to get ideas. And then they certify you when you get a certain amount of ideas. It's called a certificate or a diploma. So books are so important that you actually pay an institution to make you read them. And what are in those books? Ideas. So why should you write? Well, because you want to document your ideas because documented ideas gain in credibility. Now, what do I mean by that? If you speak ideas as a public speaker, whether you are a motivational speaker or a teacher in a classroom or a preacher in a pulpit or a politician, those ideas will normally die as soon as you finish talking. And they will only be credible to the point of people's knowledge of you. In other words, based on what they know about you, that will determine how much credibility they give the ideas coming from your mouth. But the minute you write your ideas on paper, something happens to them. There is a tendency in humanity to believe anything that is written, even though it may not be true. Once it's documented, it receives credibility. This is why you can document foolishness and people buy it. Because once you write it, it gains credibility. That's why you should write. Writing will automatically give credibility to your ideas. Why should you write? Because writing gives you life beyond your grave. A book will outlive you all the time. Because book freezes your experience. It makes you eternal. It makes you speak beyond your grave. Actually, writing allows you to multiply and expand your influence. You might be able to speak to one audience, that could be 5 to 50,000, but that's it. The world has billions of people. When you write a book, your ideas can go beyond you and enter countries you never thought possible, that you've never visited. You will enter people's homes that you could never get into legally. You will enter universities and schools and colleges and children's lives and young people's lives who will never invite you in, but they'll invite your book. So your book, your writing will give you influence. It expands your capacity to impact people. And this is why writing is important. Another reason why you should write is you should be qualified. Now, what qualifies you to write? First, you must have an experience. People don't want you to tell them other people's ideas, because they can go to those people and get them themselves. They want to hear your experience. All of us have experience with life and with truth. And so you need to begin to think about, gather, and begin to document your experience with life. Second qualification, you must have a clear idea. Many times people ask me, what's the first step in writing a book? And my answer is, do you have an idea? Now, I'm going to use the word idea. I'm talking about a big idea that is so important to you that you believe everyone else should know about that idea. Maybe it's an experience you had, or understanding that you got about life, an experience that you had in life that became so important to you that you want to share this with other people. That's what I call the big idea. You know, every good book only has one idea in it. And you build the whole book around that idea. Every book on my table or there in the lobby has one idea in it. And everything is built around that idea. You keep building around it so that people walk away from that book with one idea. One message. So the question is, do you have a clear message, a clear idea that you can crystallize and you can document? Third qualification for writing a book is you must test and prove the idea. If it worked for you, if this idea impacted you, changed your entire experience, it transformed your life, then you have the beginnings of a qualification to write put your thoughts in writing. Sometimes I've seen people take my books, read them, and then collect information from my book and write a book from my information. That's not a clear idea. I've tested these ideas myself, so they are mine in that book. I've proven that they work. You need to go and get your own proof. So you can read, and by the way, if you're going to be a writer, you got to be a reader. You have to read a lot of books. There's nothing new under the sun. What there is recombinations of old things. So a writer never writes anything new. They just write it from a new perspective. And new means their experience with it. So if you're going to be a writer, you have to be a reader. If you're going to be a writer, you have to have had an experience with what you want to write. Now, there are different types of books, so I want to be cautious here. For example, if you're writing poetry, it may be experiences that you have in life that you capture in prose, and you want to write a poetry book. That's a different type of writing. Or if you want to write a journal from your experience in maybe traveling or in ministry or whatever you do, that's a different type of writing. You are recording your experience and you can put it in a book and people can enjoy that. Or you may want to write a fiction book. It's a different kind of book, but it still needs to have an idea in it. For example, Star Wars is a fiction series of books. And if you study Star Wars, it's really about one idea. And everything is built around the idea. And they've written many different volumes of that, which became movies that made billions of dollars. But they still have an idea in those books. But that kind of writing is not necessarily from experience. It's from a creative bent of fiction, where you have a creative mind to capture ideas and put them in a form that is fictional. I believe what most of you are talking about in this room coming here today is different type of writing, and that is writing that may be inspirational, educational, teaching, training, experiential. I assume most of you are thinking about those kinds of manuscripts, and that's what we're going to talk about today. All right? Next, qualification to write. Ask yourself the question, is the idea helpful to the greater market? In other words, you shouldn't write because everybody else is writing. You should write because you experience an idea or you experience some truth or some encounter with life that you believe other people could also experience with you. So you want to share that idea. You want to distribute it. You want to multiply it. Then you're qualified to write. If you had a good experience with a roach, we may not be interested in that. Or if you found a frog in your bathtub and you had a real frightening experience, we don't want a book on your frightening experience. We may not be interested in frogs. So, you need to decide, is this idea worthy of the greater market? Can this be consumed by a greater market and it can be beneficial to them? If the answer is no, you haven't gotten an idea yet to write. I've seen some books that shouldn't be on the shelf. One of the worst places to find good material is in a Christian bookstore. Because people got so many shallow experiences in these books, they're just like duplications of, just shallow experiences. It's just, there's no real deep contribution to a person's life. Some folks just want to see their picture on the back of a book and their name on it. There's no content. I don't sit down and say, I'm going to write a book. I've never done that. I've never done that. All of the books I've written are from an experience that produced a change in me that impacted my life, that totally transformed my perspective of life, and has readjusted my life. And it was so real to me every time that I said, this will help people. And it becomes the idea that I build that manuscript around. Are you qualified to write? Number 5, you must research your idea. You know, once you capture something that you think the world should know about, maybe a perspective of something, then you need to begin to do your research on that subject as well. Because your experience with it is not the only experience with it. That's why you read a broader perspective of it, get other people's perspective of it. You want to get more depth so you can have even a richer understanding of what you experienced. And this is why you have, a good book would have references. A good book would have quotes from other people who can further enhance your idea. This is where people get lazy. We don't want to research. Again, this is why you have to read to be a writer. If you don't like to read, you won't be a successful writer. You have to read other people's works. You have to read far and wide and broad, and you must be able to do good research. Now, the third question, what do you write? What do you write? Well, here's some thoughts. This is very important. Always write your passion. If you are trying to write something that you are not passionate about, you will find it almost impossible to finish that manuscript. You'll be quickly paralyzed by procrastination because there's no passion, no interest. In essence, you shouldn't just sit down and say, okay, I want to write a book. Well, there's no motivation for the idea. Good writers never sit down and say, let me see what I want to write about. Good authors never do that. Good authors are almost driven to let something out of them. That's what makes it a good book. I normally tell people, look, if you are a public speaker and your ideas are what you communicate to the public, and this could be a motivational speaker, it could be a coach, it can be a pastor, a preacher, a priest, someone who's always speaking their ideas to people. Well, you have to find out what message is your passion. In essence, I always ask people, if you want to be an author, what is your word to the world? And everybody actually has a word to the world. The world normally doesn't allow you to develop that word. But everyone has something to say to the world. In other words, I am convinced that in every human there's at least one book. And that book is really a best-selling book. The problem is we try to mimic other people, try to write what other people write, and never find our own passion. So write your passion. Pastor, stand up for a second. Yeah, I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to think in 2 seconds and then answer me. What is your word to the world? What do you preach that is really you and you always come back to it? What is it? What is it? Light to the fullest. Okay, thank you. Okay. See now, what he's telling me is no matter what you ask him to speak on, he's going to end up on life to the fullest. That's how you know what your word is. If they say speak on dogs, you'll end up dog who have life to the fullest. If they speak on money, money that makes you have life to the fullest. In other words, you keep coming back to your word. That's your passion. So your first book should be your passion. Because your passion is believable. When people pick that book up, they should feel the passion in your manuscript. Because it's coming out of your very spirit. If you got to make up things to write, You're not writing your passion. So if you're going to write a book for the first time, don't go to the bookstores and look at other people's titles and then choose a title that you want to write on because it looks nice. And no. What is your passion? First, it's easier to write it. You're more motivated to write it. It's natural to write it. You have excitement when you write it. And it begins to explode like a river breaking the banks when it starts coming out. Because it's a passion. Second thing you should write about. Write your experience. Nothing is easier to talk about than what you experienced. So write your experience. Whatever you can talk about the best, write about it. Whatever makes you feel real, write that. And your experience is what makes you feel real. I have never written a book because I decided it's a good idea. You know, one of the reasons why the publishing companies love me, and I say this respectfully, I have about 4 publishing companies that competes for me. And all of them trying to get me. Do you know why? Because I'm a very weird author. Almost every book I've written became a best-selling book. Authors don't do that. And people ask me, how do you do that? How is it possible for you to have 46 books out and 40 are best-selling books? That's impossible. It's because I don't just sit down and write. I write my experience and my passion. I write what has happened, a point of explosion in my life, something that deeply moved me, that changed me. So it always comes out with that passion. And people will buy passion. You know, Rick Warren, for example, wrote this book on the purpose-driven life. That was from a series that he taught. And he got his ideas from some people. I won't tell you who they are. Now, but it became his passion. He caught something from the information and began to teach it to his church. And it lasted almost a year. And it became his passion. Now, it's difficult to follow up a successful book just because you were successful with a book. Because now you got to find another passion. So because you are successful with one book doesn't mean you can be automatically successful with another book. People are still looking for the passion. That's why you'll find good authors with a best-selling book 1 year, and then you don't hear about them for 3-4 years. And they bring books out, but they keep falling flat because they haven't, again, found a passion. What to write? Write your testimony. Testimony is things that you tested. Again, it's because whatever you testimony in your life is real to you. So you can write on it easily. And number 4, write your revelation. And again, this is not a spooky word. Revelation means something came on in your life, like a light, boom, and you understand it. And I mean, it explodes in you. You probably got the beginnings of a book. You know, there are leaders among our trustees who I watch over the years, and I could almost tell what their word is, what exploded in them. And each one of them got a unique thing that is theirs. And I normally try and tell them, you need to write on that. And what I'm really asking for is, give me your passion. Because if you die, we're going to lose it. Document your passion. Write your revelation. That's what I do. Number 5, write your obligation. Here's a weird one. If you want to be a good writer, write what you believe you are obligated to leave the world. Do you feel a responsibility to leave what life have taught you to the next generation? That's writing your obligation. You must feel obligated to get this on paper before you die. That's what you should write. Write your obligation. And number 6, write your conviction. Don't write other people's convictions, because they're not yours. You need to write what you discovered for yourself. You must write what happened to you, what you deeply believe, what you have been convinced about. Let that be the source of your manuscript, because people will pick that up in the words. People will read your convictions. They're supposed to feel the conviction in every line you write. It should lead them to your conviction. That's what you write. Question number 4, when do you write? That's a good question. When should I start writing? Well, the first one answer is important. Write where there is a demand for it. Okay. For example, I have been speaking on the kingdom for over 40 years. I've been speaking on leadership for over 30 years. I've been speaking on potential for over 45 years. I've been speaking on relationships and marriage for over 42 years. I've been speaking on singleness for over 42 years also. So I've been deeply convicted about all these topics. And I never wrote a book. Then one day, I was speaking in Tulsa, Oklahoma, to about 15,000 people. Didn't have a book written. It was in 1990. And when I finished speaking, I got a standing ovation and everything. And I was going back to the hotel. And in the lobby was a guy waiting for me. I didn't know him too well. And he walked up to me. He says, "My name is so-and-so, and I am a publisher." He said, and I sat in the audience today, and I said to myself, I have never heard anybody speak on that subject of singleness the way you did today. I have to publish you. The world needs to hear that. I said, "You are crazy." I did. I said, "You're crazy." I said, "Man, no one wants to hear what I have to say. I've done the right." He said, "You got a standing ovation. And they couldn't take you home." He said, "Don't you see they are demanding more?" He said, "You have an obligation to give them what they're demanding. And it's trapped in you." And then he said, "I would write the book for you. Just give me all the tapes." I said, "No one wants to listen to what I have to say." I mean, important people write books, I told him. I'm just a young man teaching what I know. He said, "You don't understand. What you have is a perspective of singleness that no one have. I've never heard it." He says, "I publish books. I've never heard anyone. I've never read anything." He says, "You've got something that's a twist on it that no one has, and the market wants it." He said, "I'll pay you to write it." I said, "Let's talk." And I said, "I'm not interested in writing, because only smart people write books." He said, "Okay, I'll call you tomorrow morning, see what you think." I said, "Okay." I went to my hotel room, prepared for my rest that night, and couldn't sleep. And in the middle of my half sleep, I had an encounter with God. And what he did to me was incredible. The Lord said some things to me that I still say to you today, 1990. First of all, he said to me, he said, "If you don't write, everything you know will die with you." He spoke that to me that night. Then he says, "And if everything that you know dies with you, then the grave got all your books." And the third thing he said, "If you don't write, you are a generational thief." Well, that was enough. I didn't sleep at all that night afterwards. I couldn't wait for the morning to come. I picked up the card that was on the desk of the hotel with the publisher's name, and I called him. I said, "Can we have breakfast today?" He said, "Yes." And he came out, we sat down, and I said, "Look, I don't want to take what I know to the cemetery. I don't want to be a generational thief. So the only reason why I'm writing is because I don't want God to be angry at me." He told me I must not be a generational thief. I'll write. I said, "What do I do?" And he said, "Just give me the CDs. I mean, the cassette tapes." I said, "Is that it?" He said, "That's all. Just give me the cassette tapes. I'll take care of the rest." I said, "Is that easy?" He said, "Look, you're a public speaker. You're always recording what you do. You've done your research already." So I came back home to the Bahamas, shipped out the next day the whole set on singles up to Tulsa, Oklahoma, to the publishing company. And then they, in a matter of 3 weeks, sent me back a manuscript. They transcribed every single word. Then they organized it into chapters. They edited it and sent it back to me. It was my whole series on singleness and marriage and divorce sent back to me in a manuscript without me writing a single word. Why? I'd already written with my tongue. They documented my tongue. And I sat there in my home with this manuscript for the first time in my life with my name on it. And he said, "Go through it, whatever you want to take out, change or add, review, revise." He says, "Totally up to you." And I went through the whole thing, and I did my adjustments and added some things, and I sent it back to them. They added those things and sent it back to me. And after 3 or 4 of those exchanges to clean everything up, they said, "Okay, we're ready to go to print." And they published the book. He said, "Now we need an endorsement." And Oral Roberts endorsed the book with a foreword. As soon as the book came out, it became a best-selling book. My point is, there was a demand before there was a book. You know, if you decide to write a book, no one may even want to read it. It's important for you to talk your ideas, to test them on people, so that you can test the interest of the market for your ideas. There are millions of books on the shelves that are not being sold. Why? The market ain't interested. Last year, I saw the crisis coming. So I began to teach our church on the crisis. I taught it for almost a year. And halfway through the crisis, the publishing company got one of my CDs. They said, "You know something? The crisis is coming and you're already ahead of the curve. Can you please send us the CDs? We got to get a book out now while the market is in hot pursuit for what to do in a crisis." I said, "Well, I'll send them to you." So I sent all the CDs I did. And in a week, they had back a manuscript to me. In a week. Why? They said, "We got to catch the market." Why? Because the demand for something addressing crisis is so high. And the book was ready in a matter of 4 months. Hit the shelves, sold out. Demand. People are not obligated to buy your book because you published it. You have to make sure that there's a demand for your idea. So you have to test your idea. Timing is important for releasing a book. Environment is important for releasing. What's the environment, the present environment? Many books are coming out now on how to buy a house in downtime. But then books will sell. You know, how to make your money grow in tough times. You look at the bookshelves, all kinds of books coming out because of the environment. So you don't just write a book because you have an idea. Make sure that there's a demand for it. Number 2, when you are competent in your idea, then you should write a book. Don't write a book because you got a few thoughts about it. You have to be competent. That means you have to know this subject matter through and through. It is passionately driven into your bone. It's in your blood. You've done research. You believe it. You are convinced about it. You're convicted about it. This thing is possessing you. You are competent in your idea. You have done your homework. You know this idea. You know, you'll hear me teach, for example, this week on mentoring. You could tell I didn't just wake up one morning and decide to teach on mentoring. You're just hearing it, that's all. I heard our members telling me in the lobby, Pastor, I've never heard you talk about this before. I'm sitting there going, I knew this 10 years ago. But it doesn't mean that I have to talk about everything I know. Now, guess what? A publishing company got my information on mentoring. So I signed a contract last year for a lot of money for one of the top publishing companies in New York, and they are going to bring the book out next year on leadership and mentoring. Signed contract. Why? Because they say, this idea, you are so competent in this, you can communicate this to the generations. So please make sure you know your content. All right? Number 3, when should you write? When you have tested your idea. Number 4, when should you write? When you have proven that your idea works. When should you write? Normally people write because they've been trying something for a long time. They've been proving that it worked on other people. You need to make sure that what you want to leave in print is proven. When should you write? Write when the market needs your idea. Some of you right now need to write. Because what you've been experiencing in your job, in your work, in your studies, in your experience, the world needs right now. It's a good time to write for some of you. Depending on what you've been being competent in. By the way, I'm not a normal man, so, I'm kind of a strange guy. Most people in life are good at one thing. My problem is I am good at a lot of things. And this is very rare. Okay? And I've been told that by publishers. They said, look, we have no author who can write on 10 subjects and they all sell bestsellers. They said, no one does that. For example, Fred Price, my friend, he writes on faith. Why? That's his word. That's his passion. Maxwell writes on leadership, but he doesn't write on family. Benny Hinn writes on healing. Okay. Hagen writes on faith. Okay. Joyce Myers writes on living the word. That's a passion. I'm strange. I write on all of them. Why? Because I am widely read. I'm not boxed in. So my books are rare books. They can go to a Christian bookstore and be in Walmart and be in Books A Million and be in all the secular books at the same time. Because they are multi-market books. The ideas are multi. Not everybody can do that. So you need to check your diversity and your ability to expand your market. When should you write? Write when a market is demanding your idea. Some of you are professional people in different areas. You should really think about putting your ideas on paper if they relate to the present conditions. Okay, let's get down to the main issue before we leave. How do you write? First, you should conceive the idea. Become like a pregnant woman. Your idea should be deeply rooted in you. This idea, I can see it, it's clear. I know what it is, what it means. You conceive this idea. And sometimes it takes a long time to conceive an idea. You may have to talk about it for years, and all of a sudden one day you realize, I got something here. People are using it. They're believing it. It's helping people. Wow, maybe I need to crystallize this and freeze it. documented. So you got to begin with a conceived idea. Then the second stage of a book is conceptual content. You must conceptualize the content that would make that idea palatable. In other words, you may have one idea that's clear, but now you have to develop the content that you see in that book to support that idea. That has to be conceptual already. And that leads you to the third level of writing, and that is now you got to write an outline. Outlines are important because they put the entire book on one sheet of paper, and you can see all your ideas laid out conceptually. Writing is really just like what you learn in school. That's the writing part. You know, they say write an essay, and your teachers taught you first you got to write an outline, and you know, you got to write it in sequence, and put your support arguments, and all that is important to writing. That's what writing is. An outline is critical. An outline can be simple lines or it can be paragraphs, depending on how much you want to develop it. An outline is important because actually, an outline is so valuable that you can send an outline to a publisher and get a contract. Isn't that amazing? They will sign a contract with you with just an outline. If your outline is properly done, solid ideas, sequential content, good research documentation to back it up, they will literally call you in and say, look, we want to publish this book for you and we'll pay you. So don't take lightly the outline. In my computer, I have outlines of about 20 books that I haven't written yet. And that's why the publishers visit me. They come fishing. And I'm very conscious. I hold them back. I keep those things secret until I'm ready to consider contractual discussions. Your outline is critical. When you tell me you want to write a book, I will ask you for main idea and an outline. You send that to me, I will look at it, and I'll tell you, you ain't got no book yet. Because the outline tells me whether you have a conceptual view of your idea. And you've got the content already clearly listed on paper that will back up your idea, support your arguments. Outline is powerful. After the outline, then you do your research. Research means that you begin to read other authors. You can go on the internet, get information. You can check, definitions of words. All this is research. You want to be able to gather research to validate your ideas so that you will not have a book that is not solidly referenced. Some people write books that shouldn't be on shelves because there's no research. %80 of the books in the Christian bookshops I will never read. Why? Because we're lazy. People write their experiences without reference, without research. You got to do research. And then after you do your research, you compose antidotes and examples. These are important. When you're writing a book, you don't just write books. I've read some manuscripts that are so boring. People write a sentence and put 4 scriptures. A sentence, 4 scriptures. A sentence. This is not a book. This is a Bible reference that you're creating and calling it a book. Remember now, you are writing because you have an idea that you're passionate about. You need to have some examples about that idea. Most of you quote me often. You say, the wealthiest spot on earth is the cemetery. Well, that's in my first book on potential. That's when I discovered that idea. And I needed an example to explain the value of what you were born with. So I discovered this idea about the cemetery. Now, everyone's quoting it. I was listening to Les Brown the other day on PBS, quoting me. I hear Ziegler quoting me. Why? It's a good example, a good antidote, a good story. You know, there's my book out there on leadership, spirit of leadership. The whole first section is a story about a lion that I learned in Africa. And I put it in there. Now everyone's using my story. Don't just write sentences and then give me 5 scriptures and then I can read the Bible for myself. And if you go to the bookstores right now, in your Christian bookstore, there are 1 million books just like that. I'm writing on faith. God says of faith. He has 5 scriptures to prove it. Faith is good. 5 scriptures to prove it. It's a dumb book. Okay? So you want to have examples, similes. You want to have antidotes, little stories to help bring your idea home. Now, what's wonderful today is you can go on the internet and get 1 million stories free. Did you know that? Matter of fact, anything you want to write on, let's say you want to write on dogs, just type in dogs and put dog stories on Google. And you'll have 1,000 dog stories you can use in your book. There's no excuse. But that's called research. That takes time. And you're so quick to get your book out, you ain't got time. So only you one buys your own book. All right. Number 6. Record your content. That means start writing your content. You can start from introduction. And you can move on down. Slowly you can write by hand. If you type, of course, computer is a great tool because you get to keep things and adjust them and change them. You start recording your ideas, not writing. For those of you who are public speakers, you have an advantage. If you're a public speaker, from this day forward, if you want to become an author, you should record everything you speak on every time you get up. Even if you go to speak to an event somewhere, tell them you want it recorded and you want a copy. I do it every time. Why? Because that content could be a chapter in your book. You did your research, you prepared yourself to speak, you did all of your planning for speaking, you got your examples, your stories already in the speech. So now you use that and just transcribe it. That's what publishers do. They would transcribe your recorded message. Why? You wrote with your tongue. So be conscious all the time that I can literally write books from a series. And if you teach in series, it's easier for publishers to work with you. I always teach in series because I don't preach sermons. I teach principles. That's what the Bible is. It's a book of laws. So it's easier for publishers to work with me. Number 7, write the content. And number 8, create a manuscript. Now, a manuscript is almost like a finished book. And that's when you begin to, begin to see the formation of your ideas take shape. You begin to have a flow in this material. It moves sequentially toward a climax. You begin to put together your thoughts in order of priority and communication of your building a support for your idea. A manuscript is almost a complete book. Publishers love manuscripts. It represents a lot of money to them. Next, review your manuscript content, grammar, spelling, all kinds of little things. Now, by the way, most of us are not grammar teachers and English teachers, so you need help with this. You need a good editor. Get people who understand all that stuff. You don't need to be a good grammatist to be a good writer. Your ideas are more important than your spelling. Let somebody else, pay someone else to spell for you. It's your ideas that sells, not the quality of your writing, like your grammar, put it that way. Writing quality, it should be good, but your grammar is not important. What's important is your idea. Is that clear? So don't sit down trying to spell every word correctly and trying to find what's the best way to write. You're wasting your time. Your idea is important. The publishing company provides people to check your grammar. Your job is to get your idea in that manuscript. They will clean it up. Is that clear? And most of the time, that's what you pay them for. All that is their work. All right, number 4, it's number 8 really. Seek endorsements for your manuscript. An endorsement is important, and a forward is important too. Because, again, what you want is to have credibility, especially if you are a new author or an unknown author. You want to have the credibility of someone who is known in the marketplace. So you seek endorsements. You also can get endorsements from people who are not necessarily authors, but who are also well known, perhaps in a certain field. For example, if you're writing a book on economics, you might want to find someone who is well known in economics to endorse the book. If you write something maybe on marriage, you want to find somebody who is a very famous marriage counselor to get their endorsement on the book. Because those endorsements give credibility. Every week, I receive at least 2 manuscripts requesting my endorsement or my forward. Why? Because I'm well known in the market. And people know that if their content is good and I put my name on it, then they can ride my name through the market. It's endorsement. Or, Michael Jordan gets paid to endorse Nike. Tiger Woods, same thing, Nike. Their name takes the product to their market. So if you have a book and you think it's a good idea, the content is good, and you believe that you want to have opportunity to share this with the world, then you want to seek good endorsements or good people to forward your product. All right. Number 9, submit your manuscript. This is important. That means you got to make many copies of it, because if you're entering the market as an author, it's a crowded market. The average publisher today receives about 40,000 manuscripts a year. You just one of them on the desk of the publisher. Wow. That's about 4,000 manuscripts a month that they receive. So you better be good. This is why you can have a good manuscript and still not be published, because the time factor, the competition is high, and everyone's trying to get in the market. And lately, everybody thinks they can write. So it makes it even worse. That 40,000 become 80,000. And therefore, you have to really be good for a publisher to stop and look at your work. You got to be really good. There's got to be something about that makes them stop. Or the other secret is you need someone who is successful with them to recommend you. It's the only way to leave the pack. So don't think that because you send your manuscript to 10 publishers, you're going to get one of them. You're competing with about an average of 40,000 manuscripts, each one of those publishing companies. Am I clear? Yeah. You heard one of our speakers today say, that I was able to get him into a publishing company. I've done that to many of our mentees. They got good content. I'm convinced it's good enough because my name, got a certain reputation. I got to protect my name as well. I can't send them junk. So if I tell you, go back and start again, don't be insulted, because you ain't going to embarrass me. If I send them junk, they're going to wonder about me. Because I know the standard they're looking for. I know the quality they're looking for. But if I recommend your project to them, my recommendation makes them take it out of the pack and put it on the chief editor's desk, because they know me. And you can do this with many other authors who are well known. You can tell them, look, can you submit this for a recommendation with me, please? And they can do that. But you got to submit your manuscript to the publishers and hope, pray, or know someone. Okay, know someone. And number 6, it's very important. When you complete your manuscript, you got to pray. Because the Holy Spirit can speak to a publisher to pull yours out of the pack. And I've seen this happen to people. And the publisher would say, I don't know why I pulled this out. And then the book becomes a multi-million-dollar bestseller. Because somebody was praying. So you got to pray your manuscript through the system. Don't forget God. He can open doors no man can shut. Shut doors no man can open. All right? I thought I would give you the process of writing a book. Now I'm talking about publishing now. I'm finished with writing. How do you publish it? First, accept your status as a writer. What that means is, look, if you are an unknown author, say to yourself, I am an unknown author. Accept that. No one knows you. Now, you may have a good idea, good content, a powerful message. The world could be assisted by it, but no one knows you. So accept it. I am an unknown author. Accept that. Then we leave you to number 2. Identify the appropriate publishing company. What do I mean by that? If you are an author just starting out, you don't want to send your manuscript to the New York Times or, to Putman Publishing Company in New York. You're wasting your stamp. You may need to start with a small publishing company. One maybe in your neighborhood, or one, maybe just across the channel. Maybe one that is, also growing. And they're looking for authors to test themselves with. In other words, know where you are in the system and don't lift your expectations so high that you depress yourself when they tell you no. So, and the other thing is, appropriate publishing company also means your subject matter. If you're writing on houses, you don't want to send it to a publishing company that, basically deals with something else. They will ignore your manuscript. So the publishing company also will have to be identified. What kind of company is this? What kind of products do they produce? Is that appropriate for what I'm writing on? Because that helps you get in. Is this clear? Some companies publish sports books. But if you want to write on dressmaking, they ain't going to look at your book. So you got to, what kind of publishing company is this? If you have a secular publishing company and you got this real religious book, they may say, look, send this to someone else. So, don't think you are going to be accepted by any publishing company because you send something to them. They may not even open the package. Thirdly, submit the manuscript to many publishers. When you're starting out, you got to go fishing. People tell me sometime, Dr. Monroe, I got this manuscript. Can you recommend a publisher? And I send them a list of 7. And they go, what about one of yours? I said, look, just send it to these 7. Don't worry about mine. Based on what I read about your manuscript, you got to go fishing. And this is the level you're at. Let's see what they say about this. So you got to send it out. It's just like publishing records, music. If you're in the music industry and you want to publish music, you have to send that CD to all kinds of music houses, and one of them might bite. Okay? And normally when you send a manuscript to a publishing company, you want to send a hard copy. Because you don't know them that well enough to send them the manuscript by email. So you send a hard copy. And they'll open the box, take 2 seconds, look at it. If they don't stop, it's gone in the trash. So you send it to a lot of them in case one of them decide, let me look at this. And then they call you. Again, if you know somebody who knows somebody, it may help with that process. You could tell a publishing company as an author, I'll give them a phone call, say, look, I'm sending you an e-publishing manuscript. I want you to take a look at this. This person is a good friend of mine. I think they got good content. And you could send it by email because there's a relationship. You're sending it through. Is that clear? Now, some publishing companies will tell you, send me an e-manuscript. You go on the internet, and there's a million publishing companies out there. They'll tell you if they would receive e-manuscripts. Of course, you're taking a chance, but they will tell you, send it. Now imagine that's up there for the whole world, right? So let's say 500,000 people send a manuscript the same day by email. You're lost, right? Yeah. So even though that's accessible, it may not be the best process. You want to be as close to as being distinctive as possible. And a hard copy will normally give you a little more distinction. Then accept and expect rejection. Don't expect because you work so hard on your work that everybody is as serious about it as you are. They may not even look at it. So don't feel, that you're not good if they reject it. That you're competing with 40,000 people. So you keep trying. You keep trying. Then consider self-publishing. Self-publishing is where you decide, okay, no one wants to publish my work, I'll publish it myself. And there are many companies that'll be glad to publish your work. You can get it published online, right in your house. You can send your manuscript to a company, send your Visa card, they'll finish all the work for you. They'll do everything. They'll do the editing, they'll do the pagination, they'll do everything for you, and send you back a manuscript. You just pay them. And then you pay the money, and they send you a box of books with your name on it, and picture and everything else. You can do that. That's self-publishing. Be willing to pay for publishing. Sometimes people say, I want to publish a book. And the guy says, okay, $10,000. I don't want to publish a book anymore. Listen, it costs. It costs. So make sure you can manage and budget for publishing, because publishing can be very expensive. A good publishing company will not want to print less than 3,000 books for you, because it costs less to print more. If you get a book that you want to publish through, let's say, Xylon off the internet, a pretty good company people use. I see even in the Bahamas, you can get it all over the world. Pretty good publishing company. They are online publishing company. The less books you order, the higher it costs. So you may say, okay, I want 50 books. You might as well forget it, because those books will cost you probably $10 each. Now, if you order 500, they may cost you $6 each. If you order 1,000, they may cost you $4 each. If you order 3,000, you probably get them for $2 each. In other words, the more you order, the less it costs. That's how publishing and printing goes. Self-publishing normally means that people may not be able to afford to publish a lot. So be prepared to pay a little bit more. Is that clear? All right. Be willing to pay the price. Then consider self-distribution. Now, this is important. If you self-publish, you got to self-distribute. Distribution is the key to success in business. Not product development, distribution. No matter how good your product is, if you do not have a distribution system, you will still be poor. Can I put it that way? A warehouse full of product is costing you money. So don't just publish because you want a book and with your name on it, and then you keep it in the house, and then you try to peddle it, through your friends. This is crazy. Because once all your 10 friends got them, you still got 100 books. So self-distribution has to be considered if you're going to self-publish. Okay? I thought I'd give you some pros and cons for self-publishing versus publishing companies. Self-publishing. What you got to think about first? When you self-publish, these are the pros. You control the process. It's your book. It's your manuscript. You decide how the cover looks, what you accept. You decide how many is printed, how many is distributed to you, what the cost is. In other words, when you are self-publishing, you control the process, you control the cost, but you got to also control distribution. You control the sales of your books yourself. You also control the price points of your material. You also control the promotion of it. You got to control the advertising and the marketing of it. This is a lot of work. So when you're going to self-publish, get ready. Don't expect to compete with Miles Monroe. I don't self-publish. Don't expect your book to be in bookstores if you self-publish. Because bookstores are distribution centers. They are marketing points. And if you got to market your own book and distribute your own book, then you may need to have your own bookstore in the back trunk of your car. Now, if you're a public speaker and you travel a lot, or if you're a pastor and you got a market that you always deal with, then self-publishing may be a little bit easier for you because you have a captive market. So you can actually bring your products yourself to the market. You can advertise it to your market, promote it to your market, sell it to your market, and you can even make deals with your market with discounts. Self-publishing. Make sure your market is big enough to pay what you paid to produce it. Publishing with a company. What are the pros? One, they got professional writers. This is the kind of things you pay for when you publish with a company. You may send a manuscript that's lousy to them, but they have writers who will take your manuscript, and when they finish with that, you can compete with any book in any store. They're professional writers. Some of my books, writers fly down to see me. They spend 3 days here with me. We spend 3 days together all day, 8 hours a day. And what they're doing, they are writing with me. They call ghostwriters. These are professional writers. They understand the writing process. They can take a dumb statement, and when they write it, it looks perfect. That's their job. So a publishing company provides you with writers and editors. Number two, they will also produce a professional manuscript. They know how the industry standard works. So they can produce a manuscript that has the standard of international consumption. Some of the books that I see people write shouldn't even be in their own house for sale. They're not up to standard. For example, the standard for a industry standard book is 168 pages. Write that down. So when you have a book, if it's paginated and it's, let's say, it's 50 pages, publishing companies won't touch it. Why? It's not up to industry standard. If you got a book with 100 pages, they won't put that in their system. So the average book has to be at least 168 pages or more. That's what I mean by professional manuscript standards. Thirdly, professional designs. If your publishing company publishes your book, they got a department that deals with designing the book, designing the cover, designing the photographs, designing the fonts. They do all that work because they understand the industry standard. Professional distribution system. Publishing companies are already in the system. They know how to get your book to any bookstore. You know, every time one of my new books come out, 4 months before it's out, it's advertised. Sometimes my books are being advertised and I'm still writing the last 3 chapters. That's how powerful their distribution system is. And they actually sell the book to the wholesalers before I finish writing it, which puts pressure on the author. That's why you sign a contract. They sell the book before it's finished because it's in the system. And you can go actually online many times and see a book with my face on it, and the book isn't written yet. Because I'm in a publishing company where they have the distribution system so tight that they can literally sell it before it's produced. That's what they provide for you. They also provide professional promotion and advertising. This is what you pay for. They got industry catalogs and industry retail distribution catalogs that your book goes in automatically before you even write it. And that catalog goes, let's say, to 30,000 bookstores, just like that. Those bookstores look at the books that are coming out. They say they order this. So 30,000 bookstores order 10 books each. How many books is that? 300,000 books, right? Good. So in one day, you can sell 300,000 books without even finishing the book yet. And all you need to be a best-selling book is 100,000. So before the book has come out, it's already a best-selling book. Publishing companies can do that. They have the system. They promote. They also have what I call preset credibility. Publishing companies are known in the market. The wholesalers know them, the retailers know them, the bookstore journals know them. So when a company sends out, let's say, these 5 books are coming out in the fall, they send those to the wholesalers and the retailers. The retailers know that if a company called, let's say, a Whitaker House Publishing Company sends you 5 books coming out, they look at them because of the company's name. Everybody with me? So their credibility pre-sells your book. If you go to a publishing company that the wholesalers don't know much about, then you may find that your movement of your material may be slow because the companies are not recognized by the industry yet. All right? Be willing to pay the cost for publishing with a publisher. Publishers will charge you for publishing. Now, I mentioned to you earlier that I didn't pay a cent for publishing. I still don't pay anything for publishing because it's a miracle of God. My first book became a best-selling book. So my name became good to the publishing companies. Then they started competing for my name. You're not there yet. So they will charge you to publish you. They'll tell you, okay, you want to publish this book? It's a good manuscript, but we're not going to own it. We'll publish it for you, and you buy it back from us. That's publishing. So they'll do everything for you, and you pay them for the writing, for the editing. You pay them for all of that. You know, you pay them for all the. You can even pay them for distribution if you want to. You can pay them for advertising in their manuals and their journals. You can pay for all of that. Or you can just say, publish it, and then I'll buy it from you. I don't want you to promote it. I don't want you to advertise it. I'll do it myself. You can do that. You can actually choose from the menu what you want them to do. The only problem is, remember, that you're not well known in the distribution system. So you may want to pay that cost to get your name in the system. But you got to pay for that. Does that making sense? Yeah? All right. When you become known in the market, then they start paying you for your products. And when you become a best-selling author, they start negotiating with you. That's where you want to be. You want to be in a position eventually where you can just say no and yes to different contracts. Because they know of your content, your quality, and your notoriety in the marketplace. All right? Be willing to submit to royalty standards. Now, you make your money in publishing through royalties. If you sell your own books, of course, you make it through sales as well. But royalty basically is residual income. Publishing company, if they was to accept your book to put in their system, they would say, okay, we will take on your book as one of our books. We put it in our system, and we give you 7% royalty on every book sold. Okay? And if your book sells well, you know, the first print sells well, and they sold out, they'll say, okay, we go into second print. And you could say, look, I want to renegotiate my royalty rate. And if you become a best-selling author, then the next book you negotiate with them, you can say, I want 10%. In other words, your power to bargain for royalty depends on success of your project. But there is a minimum, you know, for royalty. I think it's around 6%. Best-selling authors can get up to 50%, 30%, depending on how big you are. I'm almost there. Expect to be controlled by the publishers if they publish your work. This is important. You might decide, I want this cover design. They will tell you, no, we're going to design this cover ourselves. Now, don't fight them too much if you are an unknown author, because they will design the cover based on the market demands. Some of you have seen my books out there. I don't know. and you see my picture on most of my books, that's not my choice. But because I am a public speaker on television, internet, and radio, and in big seminars and conferences, my face is good. So it's just like Oprah on a cover book, or, whatever. When you become a poster child kind of thing, then your face sells the book. When a person goes to buy a book in a bookstore, they say you have an average of 3 seconds for them to pick your book up. 3 seconds. You do that also. When you go to a bookstore, it takes you an average of 3 seconds to look at a book and decide to pick it up or not pick it up. So the cover is important. So when they talk about designing your cover, they will control that. If you are unknown, they wouldn't put your picture on the cover. You say, but I want a picture. Pastor Miles got a picture. They don't know you. So they may emphasize the title and put your picture way in the back real small, because you're unknown. So you don't fuss with them if they are publishing your book. You paying them to make you successful. So you have to give up some things to them. If they're publishing you, they may say, look, we can give you 5% royalty. It's about Pastor Miles, so you get 30. Well, listen, you ain't him. We don't know you. We can give you 5% for this first project. Well, you got to give up. Why? Because they're going to put your name up there, see? You pay for that. You got to plant a seed before you reap a harvest, even in publishing. Well, let me just cover with this. Principles of publishing. Write them real quick. Cover design, promotion, distribution, marketing, having a good foreword, endorsement, royalties. These are basic words you need to be acquainted with in publishing. You have to have an understanding of graphics, cover designs, promotion. How do you promote that product? Distribution. How do you get it to the market? Very important. Marketing. Which audience you want your book to be marketed to. Some of my books are marketed to business groups. So you'll find the designs in those books are very different. And then some of my books are marketed to the Christian market. And some are marketed to, family market. Some are marketed to men. Some to women. So they design things based on the market. And then you must be acquainted with things like endorsements. Well, that's what I could give you so far. Our time is gone. Any questions? I'm sure there are a million of them. I will answer a couple of them and then we'll be dismissed. Okay? We start over here. You have to stand up and talk very loud. By the way, was this helpful to you all? Give me a hand there. Remember that I was just like you. I didn't know anything. I had to learn the industry. The industry is a very unique industry. So don't think you can just jump into it and be successful. It's a very strange industry. Yes, ma'am. A cookbook. Mm-hmm. And you have a manuscript of it? You have a finished book? Okay. Oh, beautiful. And that's self-published. Hold it up so they can see it. That's a beautiful book. Turn it around. Give her a hand. Isn't that great? A cookbook for children. Now, let me just say this too, that now she has a unique product, okay? I think what she needs is a connection right now. Because unique means that the publishing company would be excited about that product because it's not just a cookbook. It's for a unique market. It's a niche market. It's for children, which is very rare. So you'll find a publishing company might be interested in talking to you about that. And if they like it, they'll take it from you, which is what you want. They'll take it from you, and they will decide that they're going to publish it, republish it themselves. That would be good for you if they do that. And then you can negotiate with them what that contract would look like. But what I'd recommend you do is to try and send that product in a nice package with a letter saying, this is my project, my product, and I'm submitting this to you for consideration for publishing. Okay? And I believe that, you got great potential there. Okay? Send me a copy. All right? Make sure I get a copy. Good. Kids' book are different from in the industry market. I think what I saw the other day is a kid's book can be about maybe 20 to 30 pages. If you're talking about, graphics and, puzzles and whatever you do for the kids, 20, 30 pages, because kids' time span is shorter, so they kind of have unique acceptance there. Okay. Yes, sir. Stand up. Speak very loudly. Yes. There are exceptions. His question was, are all books 168 pages or more? There are few exceptions to that, and that is a mini book. A mini book is a unique thing. I got some mini books over there that they publish, little things. Yeah, they're not 168 pages. So there are exceptions, but they would not be called an industry standard book. They'd have a different category. For example, there was a book out called The Prayer of Jabez or something. Okay, that's not 668 pages, but it's a booklet. It's smaller. It's not a normal size book. So yes, you can have unique categories, but it would not be in the category of a book. Okay. Yes, speak loudly, please. It's impossible to even try that. There's no idea under the sun that's new. It's just a matter of how you write it. If the publishers like it, they publish it. If they don't like it, they burn it. They don't send your stuff to people. Okay, and also there is an integrity level in the industry that protects you. You send something to a publisher, they are by right obligated to send it back to you, or you can say discard this. If you want it back, you could instruct that they send it back, but make sure you send the money to them to send it back to you. They ain't going to pay to send it back to you, okay, because you're fishing. But you can't protect your ideas once they're out there. If they're published, they're protected, okay? But until they are published, they're not protected unless you decide to copyright them yourself before you send it out, which costs money. You don't want to perhaps invest that at the moment because the book may not even be, successful. But once it's out there, they normally protect your manuscript. Yes, ma'am. Yes, good question. Are there publishing companies that are friendlier to new authors than others? Absolutely, yes. And you can actually find them on the internet. Matter of fact, you will find publishing companies that actually tell you, if you are a new author, send us your work. Those are the kind you want to find. Send them your work. What they're doing is they're trying to build their own company, you see, and they're trying to get into the market. So they would. And by the way, let me just say this too. They would probably be better for you because they're willing to invest in you. Because they're hungry too. There's a company that published a couple of my books that were just like that. Very young company called Numa Life. They were very small. I met the owner of it. I went to speak in California one day, and this guy came to me, a young black guy, and he says, look, I just started a publishing company. No one knows me, and can you mentor me, he says, and can you help me? 2 questions. Can you mentor me? Can you help me? And I looked at him. I said, you want me to mentor you? He says, yes. I have this dream of a publishing company. I got everything in place. I got a company, got the infrastructure, everything set up. He showed me a little Bible he published himself, and I said, wow, this young man is hungry. I want to help him. I'll mentor him. Now, I was already a best-selling author. All the big companies were after me. I decided to give him one of my best titles, Manuscript. I said, I'm going to give you my next book. I'm going to take a risk with you, but I believe in you. Make sure it's first class. Make sure it's up to industry standard. Make sure you're with the big boys. He cried because I was a best-selling author. He had nothing to offer me. He published that book. Because of my name, his company went like that. Boom. Because when my name got in the system that a new book was coming out, the demand for the book went crazy. He couldn't hardly handle the demand. So he had to actually start renting warehouse space and bringing the book in and getting it out. And then other companies started buying from his company, who were also publishing companies, because of my name on the book. And his company became a successful company. Now, two things happened to him. One, I was the first author that opened his company up. And two, other authors started wanting to find out who he was because of my success. So I recommended all these authors to him. And I even gave him T.D. Jakes and some other big names. And his company exploded. So you want a hungry company. They will spend money on you. They'll take a risk with you. If they think it's a good manuscript, they will even put you in the system. And you don't got to pay a lot of money for them, with them, because they're still growing. But at least they'll get you in the system. Okay? Yes, ma'am. Not necessarily. Your educational level doesn't affect your success as an author. Some of the dumbest people wrote great books, with no degrees. Again, I started out by saying it's the idea. Putting doctor on a book doesn't do anything to the book. And people just buy doctorates today. So, it's your content. Yes, sir. Remove it? Yes. Question. If you publish with a company and the book is not moving, can you repossess it? Keep in mind that when you publish a book, they copyright the book. It should be in your name. If you copyright a book in your name, which they should do all the time, that means you have a right to the book. You own the book. Now, depend on your contract that you made with them. If you say, okay, this book, I give the company the right of my copyrights to publish this book and to distribute this book for, the next 4 years, then you may need to renegotiate to get it out of there. They may charge you to get it out. Or you can wait out the 4 years and then take your book back. So you could get your book back. Yes, sir. You mean once you write a book, you read one book? No. No. You should never stop writing. If you're interested in writing your thoughts and ideas for the world, and you serious about it, there are 1,000 books in you. Because life is an experience. You always get new material. And you may need to write and publish 10 books before you hit a good bestseller. So, you don't stop because the first one didn't do well, the second one didn't do well, some of my books did well, some didn't do too well, but they all did okay. But, some, it varies. If you publish a book and didn't do well, do another one. Didn't do well, do another one. Let me tell you why. This is interesting. Because if one book finally hits, they will come back to you for every other book. And they will ask you for a contract. And you can hit them hard. Because you already got the books. See? So it's just like music. You got to keep putting your music out there until one of them songs get a hit. And then they want to know where you came from, how many songs you got. And they start going into your history. And now you got a new contract power of position, Yes, ma'am. Pneuma Life. P-N-E-U-M-A. That's the way you spell that, right? Yeah. P-N-E-U-M-A. Just go on the internet and type it in. The owner of it is Mr. Devin Stewart, D-E-V-I-N, S-T-U-A-R-T. That's the way you spell it, I think. By the way, he's gotten a few of my books since then and done very well. Matter of fact, he made so much money, he gone into another business now, internet provider. So he's making good money. Bye. You know, you'll be amazed how well a book can do if the person has a good story. Her question was, she has a mother who's 80-something, right? And she interviewed her and wrote some stuff. Listen, the potential for success is everywhere, for anything in writing. And sometimes a good story will not only make a good book, but make a good movie. Whenever you have a contract from a publishing company, for example, all their contracts will have in their movie rights because they don't know what's going to happen to that book. And if your mother has a good story, whatever her story is, and you write and you get a good editor to work with her, they can even, take your manuscript, go back to her. They can interview her themselves, build a massive book out of that thing, and put that on the market. If it becomes a story that is good enough to put in movies, you can retire. So, there's stories in this room right now that should be a biography to be made into a movie. The Color Purple was someone's story. So, yes, your grandmother may be your future bank account. Because they got maybe a lot of history, experiences, and so forth. Tyler Perry may be interested in your grandmother's story, but it has to be a story first. So, yes. Your biographies, your histories, all that is good ideas for books. I'll take two more. Yes, sir.
Okay, my name is Friendlier. I just wanted to know the guidelines as you do research to maybe enhance your material. What are the guidelines of how much you can take from other people's works? What are the guidelines?
How much material can you take from other people's works to develop your own manuscript? I think there are fundamental laws that will help you distinguish the difference between plagiarism and reference. If you took 3 chapters from my book as a reference, you go to jail. Okay? We could sue you. If you took a paragraph, that's legal. You start taking pages, you're in trouble. Okay, so that's plagiarism, and there are people who go to jail for that. I mean, it's actually stealing. So, I think your guideline should be that if you're going to quote someone from their works, you want to be sensitive to using and not abusing. Reference and not stealing. You can use them as a reference to make a point, but you don't want to steal all their complete ideas because now you are involved in plagiarism, sorry. So I would say a paragraph here or there is fine. A sentence is quite safe, and make sure the sentences are separated. In other words, you might have 10 pages with sentences, say they 1, 2, 3 sentences. Actually, it's half of my book. So, you want to use them as reference, okay, not as content. I said one more, didn't I? Okay. Yes. No, never heard of that. If a publishing, now maybe they're crooked, I don't know. If a publishing company takes your work and they accept it to publish it, then they will send you a document advising you that this book is being copywritten the manuscript being copywritten in your name. That's legal stuff. That's law. They could not use that without your permission. They couldn't give it to someone else. I think you should do your due diligence if you're going to deal with a company to make sure they are, upfront and have integrity. Check your publishing companies out. You can always do it on the internet. Internet helps you a lot. But I would say if you have any questions, any problems with that, if you're one of my mentees, if you sign up as a mentee with me, I help you with those things. I can send you my publishing list and tell you, okay, these people are safe. You send your stuff to these people. But I can't do it for everybody because, I have no relationship with all these people. Otherwise, I get 1,000 requests every day for someone to tell me do something. I can't do my work. But as a mentee, I am, interested in you and your success. Okay. Okay. I'll take one last one. Yes, sir.
In your early days, did you intentionally separate secular from Christian work? In your early days of book writing?
I love this question. The question was, did I intentionally, mentally, consciously try to separate secular from religious in my writing? I am, again, very unique in that area. I am not a religious man. I hate religion. So my books are not written for religious people. They are read by religious people, not written for them. My books are written and designed for humans. Yeah. I suggest that if you're going to be a successful author in the 21st century, you want to become a universal writer. For example, a universal writer is someone who writes to an audience that can cross cultures, cross barriers, cross races, cross socioeconomic strata. You want to be that kind of author. That, however, creates a problem. Because in my books, for example, when I write a book, if I use an example from my culture, I have to rework that example to be applicable to all cultures. Are you with me? So there are certain words that I can't use in my manuscript that is colloquialism in my culture. Because if it's a universal book, then, okay. So I've read books that should not even go beyond the people's neighborhood. Because, the language they use, the examples they use don't make any sense to no one else. So if you make references to something in your culture that no one understands, you got problems. My books cross all the barriers because I write intentionally for, people. I don't write for Christians. I write basically for the world. And so I have to be cautious how I even write. If you read my books, you'll notice that the first 3 chapters are usually almost non-religious completely. My introductions, non-religious. Because when a person picks up your book, because the cover grabs them, the next thing they're going to look at is either content or the first sentence in the introduction. And if you don't catch them in that first sentence, it's over. So go check my book, so just check it out. And you'll find that the first sentence in every book is a killer. Sometimes I work 2 hours on one sentence I got to open the book with, because that's the sentence that will sell the book. My latest book, Rediscovering Faith, get a copy of it. Look at the first sentence. Any book, because that's the only chance you get. If they close that book and they're not caught by that first sentence, you lose a sale. On the back of the book, the publisher would put statements. Those statements also are important because they basically tell the writer what this book will do for them. So that the back type is important, what's on the cover of it. I think here's one of my books here. It's kind of an older one. They've already renewed this book. I'm sure you saw the new one. This is Maximizing Potential. But on the back of this, someone picked this up. My face is there, so okay, Miles Monroe. See how big my name is? Because they sell my name now. They don't sell the title of the book. So, Miles Monroe got a new book. So they pick it up. 8 keys to dying, keys to dying empty. Wow. Then you turn it over. You ain't got to read the book to find out what's in it. It's on the cover. That's marketing. Okay? I've seen books where even the cover turns me off, How to be sanctified and holy in the name of Jesus, amen. I'm like, I don't want to read this book. This doesn't make no sense to me. How to fast and still eat, Anyhow, we got to go take a rest. Stand up on your feet. Are you glad you came? Let me pray for you guys. Let's hold hands together and ask God to give us the privilege of documenting our ideas. When you come back next year,